Hello again, guys. It's Blair Johnson with the Badass Records podcast, reminding you, if you're so inclined, you can follow the podcast on Twitter or on Instagram. The website is badassrecordspodcast.com. Got a store open. You can click the merch tab and shop for some swag. The podcast airs video form on YouTube. You can stream the audio on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, or Pocket Cast. It's the Badass Records podcast, where we talk about your story and your music every Thursday.
I don't know what to say.
I don't know, flash a peace sign or something. This is going to be episode 63, Badass Records podcast, kicking it with Rob Davis. What's going on, man?
How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thank you. Very kind of you to give me a chunk of one of your evenings.
Yeah, sorry, this is the second attempt.
No, that's fine. But I know time is a valuable asset for you. But remind me one more time where you're born and raised.
I was born in Springfield, Massachusetts, lived there till 3, and then my father, who was from upstate New York, northern New York, moved us back up there. And so I was pretty much raised in northern New York. Messina, New York was the name of the town. It's on the Ontario-Quebec border. Very cold, beautiful river, St. Lawrence River.
Okay, Rangers or Islanders for you?
I work 8 hours from Buffalo.
Oh, you said Bruins, my bad.
Right, but because I was born in Springfield, Mass, while my father was down there, he caught the Red Sox bug, which brought me to Fenway when I got to see Yaz play one of his last games.
Oh, wow, dude.
It was 83.
So you're 73, baby?
74, baby.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
Okay, me too.
Yeah.
So
then,
December...
I'm May 12th.
You're right around the corner.
49's coming up, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm at that age where I was just talking. My mom is 83 now, and I was born on Mother's Day, and 2 years from now will be another Mother's Day birthday, and we're probably thinking it might be our last together, which is, a unique time to get to in life, being close to 50. And yeah, so we were raised up there, and I caught the Boston bug, and while all my friends were Yankees, Mets, Islanders, Rangers, Sabres, I was the Bruins, Red Sox guy.
Okay. And two older sisters?
2 older sisters, yep, 5 and 6. The reason that we were in Boston, my middle sister had leukemia. But
damn.
She and the best treatment back in the late 70s, and she made it through it. And
awesome.
I was a safety net for my sister Julie, not possibly being an only child. But so we grew up, all 3 of us, all healthy. And yeah, great childhood.
And mom and dad, how did they meet?
My father came back from the Korean War, and my mother was a waitress, and my father took a busing job, and they were 21 years old, and my father showed up to work hungover with a wrinkled shirt, and we joke that my mother was the first one to saw him, and she took his shirt and ironed it upstairs for him, so he had the job, and married 58 years before he passed away, and she ironed his clothes every day of his life.
Oh my goodness!
So they met on the job at the age of 21.
In the service industry?
In the service industry. 4 months later, they were.
God, you were fucking doomed from the start, brother.
I was, yeah. So, and then my father ended up taking a job at General Motors, but my mother always waited tables. So as a kid, all my spare time was spent in the kitchens in various restaurants. So I think that's where I kind of. And my father was a bartender also.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I was just raised. Not always in the business, but always around the business.
Yeah. So did they throw tunes on? By the way, you mentioned how did it go when your boy came? And is he elsewhere now? Did everything go?
He's back in New York, and I would love to say that we're working on things. I take a look at it right now. We're at a passe or a.
An impasse?
Impasse, thank you, is what I was trying to say. And yeah, he's 25, and he's trying to figure life out. Very smart kid. Just trying to figure out the COVID thing and all that. And but he's back living around his mom and trying to get back into school from what I know. And you know, it breaks my heart, and I hope that someday we'll rekindle. But
do you talk to her?
No.
Okay.
So
I don't know if I've ever told you, but that's Adeline for Sweet Adeline.
Yep.
And Alehu. So I could sample in a jar. Not that I love that song particularly, but it was a way to throw the names.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like I was telling you earlier, my son, his mom and I got together when we were very young. I was 20, she was 18, and but my last name is Davis, and then we tried to agree on every single name, and then Kind of Blue was playing one day, and we were together, and I said Miles, and she goes, I like it, and so my son's name is Miles Davis.
We didn't find out for either, and so we had when Adeline was born, we knew it was either going to be Adeline Grace or Grace Adeline, and she was the one that said let's do it this way, and I was like absolutely, but we hadn't. I was lobbying for Alehu as a boy, and she was like we were not agreeing, and then when she was pregnant with him, she's like I don't give a fuck, and just it's fine. But so your mom and dad put tunes on in the house?
Yeah, definitely. My mother was she came from a bluegrass family.
Oh.
And which is my other I guess I really haven't spoke to you, is my other love. So when I was a kid, my father was kind of into jazz, but he was also into Peter, Paul and Mary, Simon and Garfunkel. My mother loved all those things, but my mother had she liked the old country for sure, the Willie Nelson, the George Jones, the Patsy Cline, but my God, Del McCoury.
Oh wow,
Scrubs.
That's a rabbit hole I need to go down. I think it's Del McCoury,
and all the traditional bluegrass, French Canadian. Family that were from this town, Ellenburg, New York, which is a town of 800 people. But uniquely enough, the farm next to them were Junior Barber, who won multiple National Dobro Player of the Year award.
What's a Dobro look like?
It's almost like a big old steelback guitar.
Okay.
Jerry Douglas. Have you ever heard that name?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jerry Douglas, who is arguably one of the greatest dobro players ever. He plays that. You can play it on your lap, almost like a slide, but it just has like a metal twang to it. But it's a beautiful guitar.
Nice.
So anyway, yeah, it was just a small community. Bluegrass was big there. So as a kid, and I hated it as a kid, which is the way that it goes.
Right.
And then. Somewhere in my college years, after finding the Grateful Dead, and then learning, of course, with Jerry and, David the Dog Grisham, that got me back into more of that Dog and Garcia style bluegrass. Old and in the Way, of course, with Peter Rowan, John Kahn, Vassar Clement.
Shusher. Grisman, I always would hear that he would shush you if the crowd. And then I saw him at Tipitina's in New Orleans, and sure as shit, he shushed the crowd a couple times.
Yeah,
I get it, but it's just funny.
I just think there was that Garcia Grisman documentary they did, and it shows both of them playing at Sweetwater's, I think it is. And, I think that music, especially when those two guys were playing acoustic, I mean, it was such beautiful music that in small rooms that I'm sure any other one making some noise.
So this is vinyl that you're mostly hearing this stuff on when you're young?
Yeah, vinyl. Honestly, my memory of bluegrass music is more around a campfire.
Okay,
and just everyone,
with an instrument.
Yeah, everyone picking.
Wow.
So, which is kind of neat. My cousin Jamie, who lives in Indiana now, he is a very, very accomplished mandolin player, guitar. He can play any stringed instrument. And so, yeah, my mom's had 14 brothers and sisters.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so I would say 7 or 8 of them were all very talented guitar players. And my Uncle Russell, in fact, before he died, he gave Jamie his guitar, my cousin Jamie. And so to this day, when we have family get-togethers, that guitar always comes out. Yeah.
There's music at family.
Oh, there's always music,
wow.
Yeah, with us. And, I can play chords and I can sing along. Music was always one of the things that I probably have loved the most, but realized at a young age that I unfortunately don't have the talent or the ability to play it. And I think that's
there's a fuck ton of discipline that goes into
there is.
10,000 hours, right?
Yeah, a lot of work, and someday, I always do think about, picking up the guitar and trying to get better at it. But like you said, it's discipline, and I'm not there right now,
Right.
and I know it comes hard for me. I think I have a much better ear than I have a better hand.
Right.
So. But so yeah, as a kid, it was that, and then my father's love of in a very my father was uneducated, but he always liked sophisticated things. So classical music was something that
Okay.
he would always kind of pop in from time to time, and he couldn't tell you much about it. He just knew he liked it.
Right.
So I would say that no matter what, the music was always something for me as a childhood. It was a happy place. I think it was the one thing that all of, like any family, maybe we didn't get along at times. We all loved each other, but music was, I think, a common core interest that we all had a
Awesome.
love for.
I think that it's oftentimes can be immeasurable, like what that can do for a family, and maybe one of those kind of things where you might not even realize it until way later. Like this, that was a thing that really, that was good for us. That we had that.
We laugh all the time. My father, who passed away at the beginning of COVID, and lived to be 80 years old, but during the holiday seasons, my father loved Perry Como and Perry Como's Christmas. And to this day, when my sisters and I are talking, it was just it was a yearly thing. We never, after Thanksgiving, Perry Como was on pretty much all the time, and but in hindsight now, and every year in the restaurant, I have a night where I play Perry Como in the kitchen, and it brings back great memories. And I do think that music has it's like a super highway back to time,
Ours was Andy Williams.
Andy
Williams,
Williams,
but definitely some Perry in the mix as well. But so sisters, they were into music. Did they have collections that you can recall, like cassettes or CDs? Or
Sure. So yeah, my two older sisters, I was telling you before, just in personal conversation, they were kind of my idols. They were 5 and 6 years older than me, and I think I like their boyfriends more than I like them. But when you're 8 and they're 13, 14, you pretty much whatever they listen to. So we're talking a few years ago, but Meatloaf,
oh man,
Bad Out of Hell. There was for them, Olivia Newton-John.
Sure.
All those like 80s, and I remember the vinyl. Sure, we had the metal racks that held the 78s. Is that what they were called? The small
45s.
The 45s,
Yeah.
the singles. Asia, Duran Duran.
Nice.
All those things that I think every kid who during that time period was being raised, and that is the early 80s. MTV kind of dominated, which brought me through my high school life of music, which was like I was telling you earlier, hair metal. Some of it I still like, but a lot of it I listen back now and I cringe. But my sisters and I think we had in common with the Led Zeppelin, the Steve Miller Band, all that music of the late 70s, 80s. And
Sure.
Again, if they were listening to it, then I was listening to it.
Do you was there a first album that you fell in love with, or one that you started your collection with, or?
My sister at the when I was probably 12 and she at this point was 17, she gave me a tape of Pink Floyd's The Final Cut.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And she said that there's this album called The Wall. There's The Dark Side of the Moon. She's like, but this is Pink Floyd's Roger Waters. This is what I think is his best work. And so that was the thing that led me down.
Really?
Yeah. And
That's crazy
to this
to
day,
me.
I still think that I think The Wall or the Final Cut is an extension of The Wall.
Oh, for sure.
But I do think there's some pretty songs on there. And
What about first show?
first show was my sister Julie brought me to Aerosmith in Ottawa for the Ottawa Fair, and that was their. My first show was 86. It was the Dude Looks Like a Lady.
Oh, Permanent Vacation.
Permanent Vacation.
Yeah.
It was their kind of step back into the limelight. And then my second concert was what was supposed to be their last tour back in 1989, the Steel Wheels tour from the Rolling Stones.
Okay.
And that was my second concert. So 86, 89. I think my 89 second concert when I was 15. Yeah, we just came from such a geographically isolated area. It wasn't until my senior year of high school that I saw, my junior year, the first Lollapalooza.
Okay.
we got to see Metallica up in Montreal when the riots happened. Those were kind of, I didn't really get to see that many concerts in high school.
Okay.
But then went to college, and that's when it
Yeah, so I know of your culinary background, and I know very, very little about the baseball piece. But between what was life like after high school?
Yeah, high school. I actually went to school for accounting down in Morrisville, which is outside of Syracuse. 2 years SUNY school, and had found the Grateful Dead.
Did you say SUNY?
SUNY, which is
SUNY.
Yeah,
I've seen that word and.
So the 4-year state colleges in New York are called SUNY, and then the 2 years are called SUNYs also. But there's CUNY versus SUNY. State universities in New York. If you're in New York, it's the economical way of going to college, and it's where 90% of kids that don't get accepted to the Ivy Leagues go to. There's some very good schools for very good prices. So I ended up finishing at Albany University, but started at Syracuse, right outside of Syracuse, a little town called Morrisville. Had found the Grateful Dead my senior year and was really going through, like any kid at the age of 18, was going through some transformations. Up to that point, I was a pretty clean-cut kid who played baseball, enjoyed it, but found the Grateful Dead, and also found that there was other things in life that I didn't know existed, and which led to a lot of experimentation. And also, I was blessed and lucky at that time period to be in the Northeast, and I had a roommate who loved the band called Phish.
Nice.
That I had never heard of, and distinctly John McHugh was his name. And back then, we kept our bootlegs, and I had my Grateful Dead bootlegs into these kind of wooden racks where you could put all your cassettes in.
I'll show you mine after we're done.
Yeah. And he under his bed in the dorm, he pulled out and he had the 91 run of Phish on tapes, and he gave me a couple, and I went and listened, and then
probably got like Great Woods and Sugar Bush and.
So I mean, no, this would have been back then. It would have been it was the Townsend shows from like the 89, but
Townsend Family Park.
Yep. So there was a lot of those 87, 88, 89s, and then out of Goddard College was in there. That's for sure. But there was a Boston. I want to say there was a 91 New Year's, which should have been Boston, I think, back then.
They do 93 at the Spectrum, maybe?
Yeah, and then they started, because I was at the 94 New Year's Madison Square Garden run. Then the 95 is the famous one, of course.
Yeah.
And then, MSG residency pretty much picked up then. But long story short, I listened to Phish, and then it was just happened to be when you were in the Northeast going to college, there was always a Phish show coming up soon.
Right.
And so probably the most transformative aspect of my love of music, and to this day, Phish is just, they're it for me, and they always will be. I got to see them play on 8 grams of mushrooms.
Oh, my.
That's
about 7 grams too many, sir.
Yeah, exactly. And that would have been the spring of 92, spring of 93, and that would have been in Hamilton College. And tickets, which we didn't pay for, were going for $13. And
wow.
We were by the auditorium door, and the door flung open, and we just snuck in. And
nice.
Fishman was playing the vacuum, and I was on mushrooms, and I wasn't ready for what I saw. But the one thing overall, I think there might have been a You Enjoy Myself, which I didn't know at the time. But there was a couple other, it was a very good concert, and I just remembered the psychedelics, the music, and, I'm at a place now in my life where Phish, to me, I don't need anything at all. It's just the music. But I will say the combination of a mind that was ready to change, the psychedelics and the music, I was in love.
Yeah.
And then, I think probably 15, 20 shows in the next couple months after that. And, that started that run for me. And, for a long time in my life, up until 98, I tried to see as much Phish as I could.
Sure. So if I didn't thank you already for being here, I really do appreciate it.
Thank
I know
you for having me.
Time is, but you were kind enough to shoot me a list, and it kind of blew me away, honestly. I have never sat down and listened to Cat Stevens.
Oh, wow.
Like, I've heard whatever you expect that I would have heard in my life, I've heard that.
Sure.
And so T for the Tillerman kicks it off, 1970, 11 tracks, 36 minutes. Fucking gorgeous.
Beautiful. Cat Stevens, I dated a girl, and her mother had a Cat Stevens greatest hits. I had never heard them. I was 16 years old and played it and fell in love with that, but then found T for the Tillerman. An interesting story. I probably went through a 15-year period from, I'll say, 2000 to 2015. I didn't listen to Cat Stevens except for Another Saturday Night.
Sure.
Whatever you'd hear on the radio.
Yeah.
But there's a few albums that I've been doing this. Black Crow is the Southern companion to. It was another album that I just recently listened to, and I said, "God damn it, that holds up, man. That is a spectacular album." So to get back to T for Tillerman, probably about 7-8 years ago, I re-listened to it, and I think I was at a better place in my life, but I never realized what a beautiful start to finish album that it is.
And the start, like, I'm 5 songs in before I'm like shaking my surprise off and able to focus again.
Yeah,
like,
that
wow.
longer boats on there is a great song. It's just a great album. So yeah, Cat Stevens. God bless him.
Pass this your way. Shitty images, but
yeah, Miles from Nowhere, which is also, Cat Stevens too, when I was going through that kind of like, from all-American kind of kid who really, had a perception of the world and have it change, and for the better, and it's one that I'm, the road less traveled, but a lot of songs in this album always hit me. The Miles from Nowhere one, I just saw the title of it, and I mean, my God, if you really listen to the lyrics, really good stuff.
Oh yeah, 4th of 11 for him as Cat Stevens.
Interesting.
And then 3 more as Yusuf Islam, and then 3 more as like a hybrid of the 2 names. How did he first land in your lap?
Yeah, by pure mistake, a girl I dated.
Her mom had the greatest hits. That's right.
Never anything that. And it was funny. I listened to him back then, and my parents loved Peter, Paul, and Mary, and I didn't realize how all my other friends, and my parents were older than a lot of my other friends, because my parents had me, late in life. So anyway, I kind of always, when I was young, before I kind of found the psychedelic experience, that I always took Cat Stevens and Peter, Paul, and Mary together. But then when I kind of went through that psychedelic rabbit hole, Cat Stevens, Peter, Paul, and Mary, not so much, which then funny came back around, and recently I started cherishing Peter, Paul, and Mary so much. They're phenomenal musicians, and really important what they did in their own kind of like little area of the arena. But that's
funny that, I mean, it's worth mentioning. I think a default perception would be that they were like straight edge or clean or what. I don't even know all the late, but
you're right.
But very valuable.
Valuable and very great thinkers. Bob Dylan wrote a lot of their music, and I mean a lot of the songs.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, I mean, Puff the Magic or Dragon is Dylan.
Really?
Yeah, along with
wow.
I want to say Leaving on a Jet Plane is also Dylan, and also The Answer, my friend, is Blown in the Wind, which obviously he did, but they also made that song famous too. So, Dylan worked with them, and harmonizing-wise, beautiful stuff. So Cat Stevens, through that, my parents never, because my father was very Army. He liked the finer things in life, but the hippie movement was one that wasn't his. Let's put it that way. So Cat Stevens would have landed in that little area, and he would have never said a bad thing about it. He just would have said that it wasn't for him.
So we go from 1970. Let's see, is that right? Yeah, 1970 to 82. Never heard of. I don't know if I've heard of this guy or not. But December, George Winston. Yes,
George Winston.
12 songs, 39 minutes. Also fucking beautiful, man. Like I was like, oh, that's probably a jazz dude, and then I was like, oh, it's instrumental.
Yeah.
And it's kind of got a Christmassy vibe. For half a chunk of it.
So he, obviously the canon in there, that he kind of variations on canon, which is very Christmassy, and so what he did is, and this was my father, who loved him, and I don't know how my father found him, but he also did summer, spring. So he did the Vivaldi kind of like concept, and was another Christmas album that was always in our house. But then when I kind of got into the intellectual aspect of college after I went through my time period of figuring stuff out. I always listened to George Winston when I needed to do studying. And to this day, when I'm in the kitchen by myself and I want to make great food, I find his music is it just.
Well, he put 17 records out.
Yeah,
so,
he has a bunch of them, and some
one of them, Lucy and Linus.
Yep.
The music of Vince Guaraldi, which
is also another Christmas favorite of
Right,
mine, and
absolutely.
I think that goes with that. I mean, that gets a rotation every Christmas.
But he takes you to a good spot in the kitchen.
He does. He takes me always back to my. I always have a respect for my father because he was he didn't even have a high school education, but he was a very
real?
No, yeah, but he was a very successful man.
Where was he raised?
He was raised in Messina, New York.
Okay,
and,
okay.
Then he hitchhiked to Kansas and lied about his age and got into the Army.
Oh, wow.
At the age of 16, and then was in Korea at the age of 17.
Some serious determination.
Yeah, and but anyway, he taught me to play the game of golf because he always perceived golf as what rich people do, and he also introduced me to seafood, even when he couldn't afford it. Because again, my father had this perception that there are certain things that you needed to become refined in life to be able to talk the language of what he found to be successful people. It was a drive of his. And so anyway, yeah, which really, and I think it's common of that age group of that time. I mean, my father would be 83 if he was still alive. And he was a self-made man. And I think that he again, just really was raised to a poverty level that's really hard to comprehend. So I think that desire to find money or to find the things in life that were of acquired taste. So anyway, to him, and George Winston, I feel, has some poppy stuff that really doesn't hit me. But I will say that his December and his winter into spring albums are absolutely stunningly beautiful.
This one went triple platinum, which is
interesting,
bonkers. That's a lot of
for a classical,
And William Ruhlman from AllMusic said it's the mother of all solo instrumental albums, and with good reason. And I mean, Paige and Trey put out December
also.
And then they just put out January. Yeah.
Interesting.
So speaking of Trey and Paige, we're gonna go for a quick second out of order, but you mentioned the final cut, 1983, 13 songs, 46 minutes, 12th of 15. No Rick Wright, very little Gilmore. Mason is kind of a reduced role. Your sister, she meant that, you believe, when she said, "This is his finest
work." Yeah, I think so. And then I think, at that age, and, I read an article that said that the music that you fall in love with when you're 18 will define what it is that you love. And I will say that, and they were saying that in a very sometimes negative, subjective nature, that maybe you fall in love too much with the music and you think it's the greatest because that's a very formidable time in your life. But I will say at that time, my sister, I just worshipped her so much. So if she said it, then it had to be, canon gospel, right? But I will say that as someone who listened to a lot of Pink Floyd, I definitely went through a Pink Floyd rabbit hole in high school. To me, I mean, I love the audio. Falling asleep to Dark Side of the Moon, right? Waking up when the bells went off. I mean, that was a common thing, and that's, I think, probably their best well known, and probably just from a audio point of view, I think a lot of technology went in there at the time with them being able to cross channels and stuff like that.
Sure.
But to me, I always thought that the final cut was a more personal version of
absolutely
of The Wall. Roger Waters' father, World War II.
Yeah, dude.
I mean,
I know. No disrespect to you or her, but the first, because I, long overstayed my welcome in the world of classic rock, and somewhere in that mix, I had very, very heavy Zeppelin and Floyd patches. And when I got to this one, and I'm telling you, I went back to Piper and saw, did all of them, and I was like, dude, we got all of these issues from the wall. Like, what is this? And even Heroes Return teases another brick in the wall part 2.
Absolutely.
I swear the title track has got like a Comfortably Numb vein running through it.
It does.
And you know, I also so it was curious. So I by the time I got to this one, you know, it just didn't stick. And I think I was also a little bit more geeked out at like Momentary Lapse of Reason is kind of happening currently, Delicate Sound of Thunder, you know, that kind of stuff.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot of like, you know, in looking through this, the one thing that always comes to mind is the final cut. And there's that, the lyrics when he's like, if I show you my dark side, will you still love me tonight? If I open my heart to you, show you my weak side, what would you do? And he's on the verge of committing suicide, I think. So it's like this coming back from, this is how I analyze it, coming back from war, seeing the horrors and finding this one person that he falls in love with, but he just can't open up to her because he's worried about it's going to be so ugly that she's going to leave him, you know? And I was like, my God, that's heavy, you know? And I think that's where like I kind of like, you know, I think that Roger Waters might have been the first emo person ever. Like that guy really, I mean, he internalized a lot, man.
Yeah.
And so I think it's that, and you know, in talking about childhood too, and how all this like reflects back. I think when I was being raised, we were raised in a different time, you know, than it is now. And I was raised blue collar. My father opened his business, which became successful, but there was a lot of like, I would not change any of it, but I feel like, you know, we went through some dysfunction maybe as a family with just stuff that happened, and which led me more to find just a peaceful place in music. And I think that, you know, the sadness that was in the final cut probably was just a sadness that was going through with my dysfunction aspect of my family. Just also the, God, the pain of growing up, right?
Well, I
mean,
think
Jesus.
I'm in my Floyd pocket because of curiosity and dysfunction. And, you know, before this rift between Waters and Gilmore, or Waters and the rest, is really even like, you know, hitting my awareness. I'm finding peace in the tracks that Gilmore shows his prowess and sings because his voice is soothing.
And I think Gilmore too, this is how I feel. Mark Knopfler, David Gilmour, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Hendrix, maybe not 100% of the time, but if I hear literally 4 seconds of their guitar playing, I know exactly who it is. And I think Trey sometimes, and you know what I noticed, and I don't know if you thought this, but in Wingsuit, in that song,
it's
when he comes off that is like Gilmore.
That's Comfortably Numb.
Oh, power.
And it's, is it not the same producer?
Is it real? I don't even know.
You know, I think that was, is that Big Boat?
It could be.
I think it's Big Boat.
I remember the first time hearing it. I'm like, that's, you know, where I often think about playing in front of that many people that strong. Like if there's a little hiccup there, the whole place is gonna like hear it. But anyway,
that's you know, what makes Wingsuit for me. Wingsuit doesn't do anything for me. I'll take it over. What's the other?
Oh God,
shit?
Round Room?
No. Well, that's a conversation for a different day. God damn it!
There was
it's not even a song. It's like the Abe Vigoda shit.
That's you had to have that.
Yeah,
Wombat.
Yeah, fuck that shit.
Right.
You know, like I'll take Wingsuit.
Yeah, no, Wingsuit is a powerful song, I think, for sure. I think Waiting All Night, is that the name of that song on the album, too? I think that's a good one.
I love that song.
Yeah, I think that's actually...
Do you remember when they like, put it out as a single? It was, like, on YouTube, and there's, like, this black and white forest scene with some pink...
I do kind of remember that.
This pink, like, river of smoke, I don't know, starts kind of pouring...
Pouring down, yeah. That's right.
I listened to that shit, like, 30 times waiting for that record to come out.
Yeah, that was big back then, because I want to say that was that their kind of... I get so confused sometimes with them. But
that's
because I know that the Coventry show, and that's when that Round Room came on. That was like that ugly time period of, you know.
There's a fucking ton of people in Facebook Phish groups that love Round Room.
I know.
I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, that Tequila song that's on there. There's
whatever.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, there's Waves is on there, I think, and I think Waves is an okay song.
It's an okay song.
Yeah.
There's nothing shitty out there. There's just nothing, fantastic.
I think it was a unique place for them
Yeah.
as a group.
Yeah. So 1989, 16 tracks, 122 minutes. Grateful Dead, one from the vault. 8/13/75, Great American Music Hall, San Francisco. That iconic introduction, ladies and gentlemen. The Grateful Dead. Dun, dun, you know, like right into what is that? Help Slip.
Yeah, and literally, that album, my God, would have been my junior year of high school when I found the Grateful Dead. Through my earth science teacher, which I told you about. But then I had my best friend in life is a gentleman named Pat Musa, who to this day, him and I still love the Grateful Dead. But him and I might have, at the age of 17, ate some mushrooms one night, and I stayed at his house, and he had an old pair of wooden Klipsches, right? Is that how they're pronounced? The speaker company?
Okay, yeah. Yep.
Bueno speakers. At the end of a long psychedelic night, when you want to go to sleep, sometimes you can't. And but I was in a really good spot. But we went into his room, and he had just bought the CD back then. This was 1990. And long story short, we put that CD in, and I fell asleep on the floor with my head between the two speakers. And I fell asleep at some point, but I was there at that concert, and it was really the hook, line, and sinker that just made me fall in love with everything about the Grateful Dead. Everything after that just made sense. It all came together. I wanted to like the Grateful Dead, and I liked Truckin', and I liked whatever else, the touch of gray back then, but
I didn't. I had Skeletons, which is a shitty greatest hits record, and I had Touch of Grey is
Built
on.
Glass was around there.
Yeah, well, right. But what's the record?
What's the other one?
Anyway, so I didn't get it, and then I get to college and hear like American Beauty, and I was like, oh, okay, but.
Yeah,
this thing, man.
What a monster of a show! I think they were doing. Did they do Blues for all?
First time. I think.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And there's some weird tracks on there that I don't know the names of.
Right, there is full out psychedelic in my mind in that time period, really, because I want to say that was shortly after. I can't remember if it was Mickey or Bill, but one of them took a break and went to India and then came back. And I don't know enough about music theory, but I know that they brought back hitting off like the offbeat and like bringing that whole realm, which then led them along with the psychedelic music to that new realm that they were, because Pigpen obviously went away, and there was that straight in your face. Garcia was like backup blues guitarist, and then I just felt like that music kind of changed. And that to me, I think back then too, that was like the first quality recording that you could get, and it was just like, whoof. And so yeah, that, and also Reckoning was another album around that time that really great album that really hooked me. In fact, we have a video of my graduation party, and my father didn't know it at the time, but my friends and I were all on a hit of acid, and we were drinking off a keg, and we were listening to that, and we were dancing to Ripple with my next door neighbor who didn't think they liked the Grateful Dead, but they loved that song. So that album was playing often in my high school years, but it was one from the vault that again opened my eyes out to, or open to what the Grateful Dead were as a live, breathing, improv organism. Entity, man. And
there's a lot of definitely couldn't count them all. There's a lot of places in the Grateful Dead world that offer peace and tranquility, kind of like Gilmore, kind of like Cat Stevens. And I think the way that a good Eyes of the World starts is one of those places, and this one does not disappoint. It is.
No, that must have been the Roses on here. Yeah. It's fucking just, that Help Slip Franklin also. I think that's what it's more famous for. That Around and Round on there is phenomenal. Everything, the sugary, the big, and then that Crazy Fingers, actually. That's what actually introduced me to the song Crazy Fingers, which I think was a Garcia solo, if I'm correct. Okay. And then I think he brought it back. Or maybe I'm thinking of Cats Under the Star. I don't know. But anyway, it was just that really unique song that, again, I believe up to that point, if I would have heard it, I don't think I would have had the I wouldn't been able to understand the beauty of that song, you know. And that was like the one that just like that guitar riff that Garcia had and that Crazy Fingers. And of course, like when you're kind of on that psychedelic, I'm just like listening to his hands come down the board. I'm like, those are some crazy fingers, man. And so it was just a cool transformative album for me to lead me down to this day. Here we are. I mean, we're talking 34 years ago that was, and I still on Spotify listen to more Grateful Dead probably than
any other band.
Yeah, I mean Phish and the Grateful Dead. You know, honestly, I mean, and I just try. I mean, I do. I'm not just into that psychedelic scene. I listen to a lot of stuff, but there is a safety there for me.
Well, I misspoke a minute ago when I was talking about going out of order. This was where I went out of order because I wanted to save the best for last. If I was in your seat, this is 1 or 2 on my list. 1989 Phish Junta. Now, the listing says 14 tracks, 123 minutes, which is a minute longer than that one from the vault. But that's also counting Union Federal, Sanity, and Iculus, which I do not count. Right. Because my cassette did not have those.
Yeah, those are something that I definitely experience. And to this day, I mean, Iculus is, I think, one of the greatest songs ever.
I don't want... Don't put that's not part of my Junta.
Right.
I start with Fee and I end with Contact. So no disrespect to those tracks, but for me, I mean, this fucking record, bro.
And just look at every song on there. And to this day, when they put them within set lists to a show that they could have played last night, you're floored to hear any one of those songs, man. Like literally. Yeah. There's not like any, I mean, Esther, are you kidding me?
Right.
Like, and so why this really kind of like, Junta was the album that there was Picture of Nectar, and that was more of a rocking, you know.
Jazz rock.
Where this, I remember coming home from college for a weekend and somehow not having this cassette, but having the cassette, and up in my room, I was actually studying, and I really listened to it for the first time, and I was just like, I have never heard anything like this before at that time. This is 1991, 1992. And, you know, from the Trey singing into the megaphone for Fee, and, you know, just the lyrics and just the, you know, I mean, that was all something new. And then again, Esther, like, what the fuck is going on, man?
Right. I hated, not to skip ahead, but I hated and it bothered me to have a Phish song that I hated. I hated Foam. For years, and then one day,
did you see it live by chance?
No. But then one day, there's a really so that's kind of the prototype of release intention. And you got it's a journey. You got to get through some ugly to get to the beautiful. And one day, because there's a very, very beautiful part of Foam. One day it hit me, and I was like, oh. Yeah. It was all worth it. Bam, 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 you know.
I always looked at it as I felt like I was like going down a dark well, and then, like you said, then when it comes out of it, it's just like, and you know, I mean, Gordon in that bass line at the beginning, and then when Trey just comes out of it, it's just like, and then when you do see that live, they do such a great.
Well, when he comes in with that, I mean, and then the whole thing's just fucking building and building, and it's just straight. It's like bottled euphoria. Yeah,
that's you know, and that's, I think, you know, and when you really think about what sells most people on Phish is the if you're just I'm not saying lucky, but if you have the mind where this stuff sounds great, never seeing it live, then I do consider yourself lucky, because it does to me.
1,000%.
You know, and it does for me too. But then when I went and saw a lot of these songs live, it was like, oh my God. And that's what I think really hooked me on Phish, is that for playing back then, playing an 8,000 person room, they made it like it was a Broadway play almost, in their own way, with their lighting, and then, you know, the secret language and all this shit going around. I mean, I was lucky to be at the White Album Halloween show, and
oh wow,
I'll never forget that.
Glen Falls Civic Center.
Yeah, so I was living in Albany at the time, and
You've seen John Fishman's penis.
Yeah, you know, I don't remember that, and this is one of my greatest Phish stories that I can tell, is that at the time I was going through a breakup with this girl who was from Long Island, Sarah. We're still friends today, and she liked Phish because I liked Phish, kind of thing, and
Sure.
she was going down a whole nother path, and
The stories those girls could tell.
yeah,
she liked Phish because I did.
She's doing amazing, and that's great. But I was a sub maker at a place called Madison Subs and Wings, which was in the heart of the Albany University bar scene.
Okay,
and Phish,
sounds like fun.
Phish was playing Glens Falls for Halloween. We knew that, and I was at I had flunked out of college. I was working at the sub place. I was doing a lot of drugs, man. But I did have an apartment.
You putting drugs in your nose?
Yeah, no, I wasn't back then. I was just, I was taking a lot of LSD.
Okay.
Smoking a lot of pot.
That's medicine.
Yeah,
It's not drugs.
I was a heavy psychedelic person for about 3 years of my life.
Okay.
In that time period, I'm talking 500, 600, 700 hits of acid, like way too.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
bro.
way too much.
Okay.
And I used that as now I realize that was a coping mechanism, and that was my drug to abuse, and I abused it. With that said, I think I got a lot of good out of it. But what I'm trying to tell you all this is because I really didn't have that much money, and we couldn't get tickets. They had sold out, and then 2 days before the
Wait a minute, college dropout making subs and you don't have any money?
I know, shocking, right? 19 years old at the time, and this girl walks in, and I had just gone downstairs to put the order away, and it was just in this old shitty building, and downstairs she literally fucking had to duck underneath the rafters and everything, and so I fucking had some kind bud back then. I smoked a bowl, and didn't realize how much the marijuana smell came up, so I came back up, she walked in, it was daytime, and she was a Long Island girl, which is like 90% of Albany, and very, very dolled up and everything, and I had Phish playing, and she's like, it smells like marijuana in here, and I said, I'm so sorry, and then she goes, is that Phish playing? And I said, yeah, it is. She goes, my boyfriend bought me 3 tickets to go, I don't want to go. And I said, well, I'll gladly take those off your hand. And she's like, yeah, they're like $25. She's like, how about you give me $50 for all 3? And I didn't have any money, but I opened that cash drawer and I figured that out secondly. But there was no way I was, so I gave her the money.
Right.
And then we drove up, my friend Beetle, myself, and my friend Joe Baltris. And we drove up there, and
You're like a watered down version of Chiefsaholic.
Yeah, exactly.
The guy that robs banks to go to Chiefs games.
Pretty much, exactly. Took $50, and there was no moral. Now I look back, I'm like, that was. But I paid back that money. That's a thing. But
that
I
counts.
didn't.
That counts.
Yeah. Oh, it did. And I am that type of person. I mean,
Yeah.
if you know me good enough, you'll know that. But I didn't think anything about it at that time. And but so anyway, we went, and that was when the Phish scene was just really. Again, there was the theatrics about that. I remember showing up, and I knew a lot about the group then. I had seen them enough then, and I would be considered almost an insider back then. But man, people dressing up as an angry pack of joggers, people like for the Halloween experience. But it was like, this is getting bigger than anything that I ever could have imagined,
or have been a part of,
And it's like,
I mean, sports is one thing.
Yeah, it is, and it was almost like
so is being in a learning institution,
sure,
a college, a high school.
But there was something that just felt right about that to me at that age. To them, it was a part. I wasn't like a lot of these kids. I wasn't, the Wook. I wasn't the the Trustafarian kid. I was none of these. But
right.
I knew I loved that music more than anything I think that I ever knew. But I didn't understand it, and I didn't understand the hippie culture. It was all so new to me, and it was all...
The only element I would add, because this is mirroring, a lot of what you've said has mirrored my experiences, but I didn't understand it, and it was like this quiet voice in the background that it was like, but I will. I am going to do everything I can to... And then you eventually one day you wake up and you're like a fucking walking encyclopedia of Phish.
Yeah, and that's like, that's what people who don't understand the band, I mean, it amazes me how there are some people who are... And I know more than I even fucking conceive that I know, but there are just people I can tell you last time played, like, it does draw that fanatic aspect of it. And I do think that I've always been able to... in the height of my psychedelics height, and seeing Phish, I went through a bad little section where I thought maybe they were something more than a band. Like, it was weird. It was a weird time for me back then.
I fucking wrote him a poem once and mailed it to him.
And I had Trey in a dream, and now it makes sense to me. But Trey one time like came up and was just like, you have to be passionate. If you're not passionate about it, then don't do it. And at the time, I became a brewmaster, and it was wasn't what I was supposed to be kind of doing, but it was.
You learned how to make beer because Trey in a dream.
It made me what I now realize is that I held the band to such a creative esteem without knowing it, that I consider myself to be a creative person in life, but obviously on a archetype subconscious level, Trey was just my subconscious,
bro.
You know, kind of going. And
this fucking record is ground zero, dude.
Yeah,
I mean, it really is.
It is. And
I think that I'm aware that I've only heard a very small percentage of all the music in the world, but I can confidently say that I think that You Enjoy Myself, that studio version, is one of the finest compositions ever created.
Yeah,
it is fucking magical.
And that would have been the time when Trey was really working with, what was his name, Ernie?
Styles,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Who had said the rest of the band are a bunch of like, you know, this is just me.
Sure.
But that kid does, maybe he has something in him that could be something, you know. And but I think Trey
needed that at the time. I bet.
No, he did, and I agree with you. I know, and looking at the Dinner and a Movie song, I mean, a lot of fun, but just what a banger of a song. Divided Sky, are you fucking kidding me? David Bowie, are you kidding me? I mean, if you think about all these songs and what they mean, not only that, but if you really think about it, Yem, Divided Sky, and David Bowie are all definitive set. The band looks at those songs and say, "What are we going to do?
Heavy duty staples.
What are we going to do outside of that?"
Right.
You know what I mean? And like to have all those on one album, and
there is, I guess if I hated Foam, I thought of Golgi as a throwaway, because I always knew it was like written in 8th grade science class, blah blah blah, but they could play it, and I've had this experience recently. They could play it tonight, and if I were at the show, that Acme, that where it all kind of feels like fireworks of the mind, you know, is special and doesn't get repeated, you know, in many other places in their catalog.
No, I think I forgot Fluff is on there,
right?
Too, which is just crazy. Yeah, Go Apparatus is you know, I think I'll always, again, for that time period in my life, I mean, this is classic Phish 1.0, you know, and yeah, like you said, written in Tom Marshall and Trey in 8th grade fucking biology class or whatever it was. Contact,
man. There's I'm good for a Bittersweet Motel viewing, like probably once a year.
Yeah.
I would say not many years have gone by without me revisiting. And one of my favorite things to do in that sort of same lane is to pull up the footage from first show back, 2009. It's an East Coast venue. The name is escaping me right now, but it's literally
Providence. Was that their first show?
No,
I thought it was Providence, Maine.
No, it's
Bank. Not hold on. I know they played Fenway around that time too.
Well,
and I remember because I stopped listening to them. So my first show back, just to quickly, was the 10/26 2010 in New Hampshire.
Okay.
And that's when that was the day after Gregory Isaacs had died. There's a night nurse on there.
Oh, dude, that song is fucking, that whole record is medicine.
Yeah,
Gregory Isaacs was fucking phenomenal.
I love reggae. That's the other thing. My ex-wife was from Jamaica, so that was
okay.
That's another love of mine.
Hampton.
It's
Hampton.
Oh, it's right.
The comeback, and they open with Fluffhead, and the place. There's you could YouTube, you know, it's all crowd footage, but
Jonathan Schwartz was just talking about it on Sirius the other day, and how just collectively speaking, I mean, you know what, and I think that was Trey being like, hey, when I was fucked up, because we all know Fluffhead is as someone who can barely play chords, that is a monster of a fucking song to play on the guitar. So, you know, I think that was him saying...
That place goes fucking bananas for, like, 12 solid minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, because they open with it, they take the stage, so they're back.
Yeah, they're back.
And then he hits that first, you know, and then of course everybody loses their fucking mind for powerful pills as they always do.
Yeah, as they always do. But I just think once Gordon comes in with that, boom, 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 boom. I mean, it's just a great time, man. There's no other way around it. And yeah, that was I feel like really at the end, and there's so much more for my love of music than just Phish, that's for sure. But Phish just had this weird kind of, it's like the perfect time, perfect place, and how I really kind of like have correlated like my life sometimes that, when they went down and Trey was all fucking fucked up, it was funny because I think back too, and like, I don't know, I feel like I've lived the experience with them, and I think that's a really cool thing, and I know I'll never do it again with any other band. And,
I know. You said, how did you put it? They're it for me and always will be. Yeah. I mean, that I think that I have said those exact words in that order before.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because at times like my sense of humor I find can be not gotten sometimes, but I consider myself at times to be a pretty funny person, and I've always thought that their sense of humor and my sense of humor, I don't know, I always got it, man. Like, that's the best way I can describe it. Like, shit would be going on, and I'd be like, this is fucking hilarious.
So much so that when they've done something that's upsetting to me, it's almost like a voodoo doll. Like, it can feel like the whole part of Bittersweet where they're, fans are approaching them and they're taking pictures and, tilting the camera down and everybody's heads are cut off. I'm like, I would have fucking wept when I got home.
I know.
I probably would have thought that somehow I fucked it up. But anyway.
Yeah, it's funny, too, because I think, like I was talking about, too, there's a time in which I thought Phish might have been something bigger than they were, which is like, a religious experience kind of thing. And that was a psychedelic speaking. And then, but I feel like, luckily, I kind of, like, have always had it that, and I think this is coming from someone who tries to create and fails miserably at it as a chef, is that it's why the 91 Without a Net album is so important in my mind's eye also for the Grateful Dead, is that, there is
that's got a great eyes on it too.
Oh, amazing eyes on it. The Althea on that.
Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. Oh my God.
So great. But I think here's the thing is that any artist, sometimes you deal with, I think, dealing with the ego and the consumption and the things can get in the way. People can get hurt and all that stuff. But it's also a very scary, the best way I can describe it, it's like being on a plank in a pirate ship and being, with a bunch of people behind you. Like, you are by yourself. There is no net to save you. And, I think that's where I feel that I realize that these guys, they're swinging the baseball bat, man. They're not getting up there, and sure, they might strike out, and sure, they're, like all of us as
Hall
humans,
of Famers
we're learning to become better humans along the way.
Yeah.
And Trey had a nasty habit, and, I'm sure they all had their own things that they had to go through, trials, tribulations,
Yep.
And
I tell my boy whenever he's frustrated at the cages, Hall of Famers hit 300. That's 3 out of every 10. So move on to the next pitch.
Exactly. And, and again, move on to the next pitch. And, you were looking for a curveball and he hit you with an inside fast. What are you going to do? Like, but I think that is that world. And I think any kind of creative person goes through that. And, people who are, sitting on the sidelines and too harsh on people, I don't understand that,
right.
And again, like I wish everything that band did was spectacular, 100%. But I have never seen another band that 85% of the time is spectacular. Like, and that might be even low. Like,
well, you have to before, if I may, before you can allow other bands into the conversation, let's weed out a lot of them by asking who plays the same set list every night.
Yeah, I know.
So now that all of those are out of the way, now we can look at, I hate to say it because it sounds cheesy and cliche, but it really is kind of a lifestyle.
It is a lifestyle, and I tell people that Baker's doesn't run without one repeat. Find me one other band,
256,
whatever it is, some
right.
some ungodly number,
yeah.
And then to have a donut theme each goddamn time.
I got 2 in,
right?
I got jam filled and powdered.
Oh, no way!
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that
I've said this many times. 63 episodes deep now. I've said it a couple times. But if I could bottle what MSG felt like when they broke into 1999.
Yeah.
I was like, I think the roof actually might come off.
What a great arena.
I mean, oh fuck, dude, it was so. And Paige just, I was dreaming, you know, it's like, we don't give a fuck. We're going for it.
Yeah,
you know?
we're going for it. I think that strawberry, was that was a strawberry
letters?
Yeah, I mean, that was beautiful. That night, I thought was, I mean, what a run. And just, again, Phish being Phish. Like, who thinks of, like, a baker's dozen and having different donuts to hand out? I mean, it's so cool, right?
Yeah.
And, yeah, and so I haven't seen Phish live since 2010.
Oh, shit,
which
bro.
is crazy. And
I just did 3 nights Atlantic City in August. It was a
and
blast.
I live vicariously through, and you know, being a chef and also being a good partner in life. It's,
yes.
There's only so much time, and I'm also living in a place that's not home. So you know, we get 2 weeks off a year. 1 week is in the Caribbean, and the other week is we also have grandchildren. You know, it's just life. But at the same point, I feel so grateful to be in a play, like, you know, for the New Year's run every year. In the kitchen, I find a way to stream them while I'm cooking, work my ass off. But, you know, it's so much easier to be close to them. And I know I will get back there, and I know I have to do it sooner than later. But
I got nothing on. I maybe can use my buddy's extra for 2 nights of Dick's.
Right.
But he put together like a shit. I don't know, man, like $3,000 cart. I mean, just 3-night run here, just whatever like I can get. And he was nervous that he's like, I got maybe 2 tickets to 3 different shows. That's awesome. And I didn't even have, you know, I was gonna be able to be a part of whatever I wanted to out of those tickets, but I didn't, you know, I've been getting shut out pretty hardcore. And it's just like, I'm at a spot now where I can really only be serious about committing if I'm not lying to myself about the financial piece.
Sure.
Because you're getting on it's a $2,000 thing to go to Atlantic City for, you know,
it's not easy.
2 plane, you know, a bunch of hotel rooms, party like, you know, it's $19.99 ticket. Oftentimes you're looking at secondary market, you know, prices for tickets.
All
so
those things. And that's, you know, I think that you and I are both in a place where, you know, financially, first of all, you know, gone are the days of, let's, holy shit, Phish is here. Then, okay, what do we got? 14 days? Okay.
My Midwest run of 95. Fall to, yeah.
Right, exactly. And I miss those Northeast, like, spring and fall, summer runs. We were telling the story that, great, this is a 93 or 94 when they played the Theater St. Denis. We left Albany, saw the Great, and I still think it's the last game, Henge, the Great Woods 94 summer, or spring maybe. No, we were at Amherst, and then we went to Great Woods, and then we had to pop up to Plattsburgh, New York, which is the North Country of New York, because I knew a guy that might have grown a lot of weed, and so I had to pick up a quarter pound. And then while we were there, and, well, to tell the story honestly, I have to be honest. Cousin Paul, he's dead now. He was a big coke dealer in Plattsburgh, and we were getting the weed, and he walks in, and it was a cousin of a friend of mine, so he lays down these railroad ties that we all fucking snort up our nose, and then we get talking to eating mushrooms.
Oh, my God.
And then it's just this weird thing, and we're listening to the radio, Shome 97.7, a station out of Montreal. Phish had the night off, and out of Shome, out of nowhere, they said in an odd to-be-announced show, the band Phish is playing at the Theater St. Denis. And the Theater St. Denis is a classical music, beautiful venue, man.
Really?
So we looked at each other. All right, so we fucking hop in the car. We go across the border, and don't you know we get detained.
Oh,
and
fuck.
I'm on psychedelics, cocaine, fucking mushrooms, marijuana, and I'm put in this room, and I thought I was having a heart attack. But let me tell you, we were calm and cool, and they didn't have anything on us, nothing like that. And they sent us through. And we
all the drugs are in here, sir.
Yeah, exactly. We literally had everything in. So we weren't that stupid,
right.
You know. And I mean, growing up on the border, my hometown's a half an hour south of Montreal. We know Montreal very well. And but there was like 300 people, I think, at that show. That was it.
Wow.
Fishman came out with. And if you look that show up, man, one day they did a big black furry creature from Mars. Fishman came out with the vest, did the fucking washboard shit, and I just remember at one point there. looking around, I'm like, well, fuck, man. I guess more people are going to come in. I'm a big Phish. Maybe I have to. And they walk out on stage. I'm like, holy fuck, there's no one here. And that was the time period back then where, hey, Phish is playing 2 weeks. Let's take it out. We'll go camp here. We'll camp on the side of the road. Now, if I were to do it, I would get the hotel room.
Yeah.
I would find a nice
Play around the golf.
Play around the golf. Go catch the fish.
Have a tourist day.
The psychedelics aren't happening
Right.
anymore. You know, I'll get high as shit probably, maybe a couple cocktails here and there, but and have a great time. So
Yeah.
if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it in style. And
So, how many times have you been to Montreal, and have you ever seen a Habs game?
I've never seen the Habs game,
Okay.
which is funny. And like I was telling you, I was raised in hockey country, but because I was not a hockey player, I think I subconsciously grew to despise the game.
Okay.
But I love the game. I know enough about it, but
You know who Colby Geraltz is?
no.
Chef, owner of Rye and Blue Stem. Anyway, his wife is the pastry chef.
Pastry chef.
Yeah.
I know about them. I
Okay.
did not know them.
They on Facebook. I don't know, maybe a month ago. I think it was her that posted it. And it was like they're in New York, and they were like, we're at a crossroads because the one spot of our itinerary, like, we're not all on the same page, and it was Broadway show or a Rangers game at MSG, and the post is like from their seats at MSG.
Wow.
And I was like, good family there, man. You made the right choice.
Great choice on that one.
Just because, and the Rangers, I don't know, New York, Original Six, they've always just kind of been admirable. Like,
Yeah.
I don't love them. I'm not a fan. I don't root for them, but I love what they represent. It's American hockey, an amazing franchise, amazing venue,
Yeah.
gorgeous uniforms. The great one finished his career there. I mean,
history, like you
Yeah.
said, and being a New Yorker, but again, let's put it this way, in my hometown, which was on the Canadian border, we had 90% Hab fans, and
okay.
it was just a Hab country, and I got friends that still have the old, they were season ticket holders from the old, what was it called? The Forum? No,
Yeah.
not the-
Yeah.
And they have those chairs in their house now.
Fucking
yeah,
A.
which is cool as hell, right? Guy Lafleur.
Sure.
Who else is there? Ron Hextall was there too for a little while, right?
Yeah.
Like, so all those. Yeah. So Montreal, I don't even know. Let's put it this way. I'm from New York. I've been to New York City 10 times. I've been to Montreal 1,000 times. A half an hour across the border, and you're up there.
Right.
My mother's French Canadian. I have a love of Montreal.
Never been to a fucking Habs game.
No, never
That's
been to a
crazy.
Habs game, but I've been to every great French restaurant there.
Okay.
And just
Maybe
always,
that's better.
yeah, I think so. I think that the old Montreal is. I just tell everyone you got to see New York City for just New York City, and I love everything about New York City. I love when people try to tell me that people from New York City are assholes, and I'm like, no, they're not. They're really not. And they aren't, man. They're busy. They got shit to do.
Yeah.
And when you're sitting there in the middle of Times Square with your head looking around, they're just gonna be like, get the fuck out of my way, man.
My Baker's Dozen, that was my first and only time. And at the time, my wife's, she's my ex-wife now, but her kid's sister was living there. And so she didn't like have a place. She found a place for us to stay, but she didn't have one of her own. But we were kind of with her for the week or whatever. And I was like, I was going into the trip with the mindset of, I hate crowds. I hate hurrying. I don't want to be stressed. Like, how am I?
You're going to the busiest,
I had to,
most populated place, right?
I had to have a mindset. I had to be intentional. Like, don't fucking be sour grapes. Like, So I did, and I loved it. But at one point, I was like, why the fuck is everybody like constantly buying, one beverage? And she's like, well, I'd love to have a 12-pack of LaCroix at work, but I'm not fucking carrying that. And I was like, oh. And she's like, dude, everything about this city is, how, do you want it badly enough to carry it?
Yeah.
And from there, we started talking about like what her laundry routine. She had a service that had different tiers. I was like, that's where the rap comes from.
Yeah.
Is that people are juggling a lot of different things, and they're busy and they're moving fast.
Yeah, and it's just from an engineering feat. Like, people don't think about water supply. Like,
and everybody's also this way.
Yeah.
So everybody's on top of each other.
Everyone's on top. That's the only way you can go because
Right.
you can't go out of the water. I mean, there's only so much land there, and it's so populated. And again, like the water that comes from the Catskills, man, that's where all the water comes in. Like their water system is like it's a feat of engineering. New York City is a feat of engineering, and as being someone that was born in Massachusetts, raised in northern New York, which is pretty much southern Canada. New York City was a complete foreign entity to me as a kid, but then as I went to college and I dated a girl, and I think this might be a great place to end up because it brings music and also what music meant to me and something completely different than Phish.
Yeah.
This is a Billy Joel story.
Ooh.
So Billy Joel to this day is also one of my favorite artists.
Love it.
I just love fucking Billy Joel, and I love his live fucking music. You know, Scenes from an Italian Restaurant, fucking the Downeaster Alexa. Like so much of this shit just for me being where I'm from.
First two albums I purchased: Led Zeppelin 4, Innocent Man.
Innocent Man's a great album.
Great fucking album.
One of the first 45s I can remember, my friend bought me Pressure.
Okay.
Pressure. And listen to that song again. It is
intense.
It's very good, man.
That's the first tape I broke, which is Greatest Hits Volume 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I'm sad to say I was too young to be diving into the records.
That album I think was in a lot of households in that time.
No skips.
Period. Yep.
No skip, and it's a double. It's a double album.
Exactly.
Fucking so good.
Oh, so great. Exactly. The Entertainer is a very underrated song.
Love it
by him. Also, everything about like if you really listen to that, like if I got to keep it under 305 or I'll be in the back of the rack or something like that. Like him telling about like these were the best years of my life, but like hey I'm sorry if I don't recognize you, but I got to keep on moving, man. That's the name of the bit. Like everything about Billy Joel is cool, and so. The girl that I met when I went to Morrisville was a girl from East Islip, Long Island. Sarah was her name, and we fell in love like young kids do. And we even after a year we were engaged. And then at that time I was kind of going down a darker path of like psychedelics, Phish. She was finishing up her bachelor's degree. And I was too stupid to realize it. But she broke up with me and broke my heart, and we became friends. Probably about 2 or 3 years after that incident, and just from afar, kind of. But we, again, at that point, we both had moved on with our life, and I realized that I was young and had to experiment with life. So I was a brewmaster at the time, and she always kept friends with my family. And so when Sarah got married back in 1995, we drove down. My mother, my sister. And I brought, as a brewmaster, I brought 2 5-gallon kegs of a Belgian Abbey ale that I had brewed and won a World Beer Cup silver for. And Belgian Abbeys back then were unknown of style-wise, right?
How many people know about that style today?
Yeah, and this was 30 years ago, right? Yeah.
I only knew about it because New Belgium
exactly.
had one. Yeah, and I still have all the 11 by 15 card like glossy of each. It's like a label.
Okay, right.
Like obviously the fat tire with the bike was anyway. But there was an abbey, and the picture is an abbey.
Yeah,
or a monk.
Correct. And so an abbey, and it's so funny because when I brewed it, my sister, weirdest story. I brewed that beer, and my sister gave birth like the day that I racked it, and. Then my mother called me. I called Julie. This is again back in 1995, I think. Abby would now be 27. Yeah, holy fuck. So anyway, I go, oh my God, so it's a daughter. And I'm like, what's her name? And she goes, I named her Abigail. And I'm like, oh my fucking God. I'm like, well, there's the name. So we called it the Abigail Ale. And I brought it down to the Culinary Institute of America for the first Tap New York. And that was the first one gold medal. I was a young, long-haired brewmaster.
Did people dig it at that party?
No one. The reason I won because no one ever had an Abbey Ale before, even in the craft beer thing. So anyway, I was like kind of ahead of the curve on that one. And then the Belgian craze then took over. We have Blue Moon now. I mean that's more of a wheat style. But anyway, to get back to the story, I remember distinctly going down to her wedding. And this sums up music, New York, and everything that defines New York and what makes it great. Her now ex-husband, but the guy she was marrying was a merchant marine, and that's where they had their wedding was in Great Neck, and it was at this like marine kind of ballroom, and it was sitting over the bay, and the White Stone Bridge was in the background, if I remember correctly, and we were all drunk on the Belgian Abbey Ale. And Sarah and her ex-husband, her husband then, and all of their New York, Long Island friends all got together, and they had a live guy playing. And at the end of the night, while the sun was going down, the Bay was in the background. He plays Piano Man, and all those kids got together with arms around each other, and they were just singing. We all know the lyrics of Piano Man, but these kids, it's like it was them. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I remember thinking, I am not part of that New York City vibe, but that's so fucking cool, man.
My good friend who I've known since like '82, just coincidentally, he all of him and his 3 siblings all went to school in Dallas.
Okay.
And some are still there. He ended up coming back, and he wound up living in the neighborhood and wound up having like his 12-year-old daughter is besties with my 12-year-old daughter, and his 9-year-old son is a bestie with my 9-year-old son. Godfathers and that. And so when they got married,
intertwined,
he said, "I need you to do this thing for me." And it's after you've done all of the father-daughter and the throwing of the whatever, you do all the things, and then it's kind of like, okay, I guess this is where people maybe start peeling off and going home. But anyways, like before we get to that, I need you to orchestrate this version of Piano Man that is going to involve everybody that's in attendance forming a giant circle around us. And every time the refrain, you have to have a mic. So just kind of at your own pace, the verses are playing.
Yep.
Sit at the bar and put bread on my, and you just get to say and drink, and people drink, and then you say and step, and step and drink, and so by the time you got to pace yourself because it's not a short song.
Not at all.
So by the time the song ends, the whole ring of people is now in a tight circle around the new bride and groom. And so we did it, and it was a blast. And then part of the gig is like you have to, once you've if you've been asked to orchestrate it, then you have to
do it,
make it happen at somebody else's wedding, and hopefully it passes. But
that's cool as hell, man. Yeah, and that's and also with music too. And it's so the one thing that sometimes I don't like about the Grateful Dead scene and the Phish scene is how passionate everyone is. And you know what? But this is the way our world's just moving into now. Somehow, some way, people's opinions have turned to where like they have to be right, And the one thing that I always love about music,
keep it moving. I don't need that here.
Exactly. And that's what Johnny Fishman to me is so great about that. When I listen to his Errant Path show, it's like, dude, and that's how I am. Like, I'll hear like an African, like, I don't know, tribal like drum beat or something. I'm like, that's fucking hot, dude. Like, or jazz or like, like bluegrass, like Billy Strings. Do you know who Billy Strings is?
Yeah, of course, man.
Oh my God, that kid is like, he's got my heart and soul, man.
Well,
like,
he sat in with, so Billy joined Tab.
He did.
On the same week that Trey played with Goose.
Right. And
I was like, okay, Trey, have yourself a week, brother.
Right. And that's what they were talking about too, is like Trey, Uncle Red's becoming like the uncle. Like he's literally like passing the torch on to these kids. But I'll be honest with you, I think Billy Strings is, and I think Trey would probably tell you this, Trey would wish that he had, and Trey is just a different guitar.
Wishes he had Billy's chops.
Oh my God, that kid is just disgusting. Like, and he's, if you get a chance on YouTube, look, Bela Fleck and Billy Strings doing Balderdash together.
Okay.
Oh my fucking God. And like, when you see Bela Fleck just being like, I mean, come on, Bela. Yeah. Everyone looks at Bela and does that. I saw Bela back in 1994, and he was playing the banjo with one hand, and I had never seen that before. And I was pretty drunk, but I just stared at him in the House of Blues in South Carolina, being like, "Holy!" And then Victor Wooten, like, but still, man. Like, Billy is just he's such a humble, beautiful. His story is amazing. Yeah. Everything about him.
Yeah.
I wish more people could learn more about him, and he's cool, but. To get back to my point is that, my love for music will always be Phish, the Grateful Dead, the psychedelic scene. It's what hit me, it changed me, but I just truly have a
kick-started your Errant Path.
It did, but music, man.
And now you used Errant jokingly, just for the sake of...
Just for this. I think that music more people need to listen to music, and it doesn't have to be. It can be any kind of music,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And I used to be very like anti-pop music. I'm even trying to embrace that
Sure.
now, man.
Yeah.
Like, and then when there's cool shit, like I was listening to that Lord Girl. Will Never Be Royals.
Yeah.
What a beautiful fucking song, man.
Yeah.
And I was, or you know who else I was listening to is older song, Treat Me Like a Criminal. It was a, or is it Criminal? It's a female.
Taylor Swift?
No, this
No.
is old.
Okay.
Like, boom, boom. Anyway, it was,
Right.
I can't remember her name, but it was a song that 15 years ago was on the radio, and I wouldn't give it the time of day, but like I'm driving the car, I'm like, holy shit, that's good. So I think music is just so important. I think
Yeah.
it's great that you're doing this. I think
Thanks.
that people need to talk about it more. It's just, you can learn so much about a person through music, and as a chef, without it, I don't know what I'd do.
Right. So I do probably play more golf.
Yeah, that's
It's-
true.
you're-
But you have to be in a kitchen. You can't play golf
No.
in the kitchen. You can always listen to music.
Right. So how's your game these days? Is it where you want it to be?
I put a lot of work over the winter, and I've played 2 rounds outside, and they both have had very disappointing 9s that I probably have shot the highest score that I've shot in probably 5 years.
Oh, wow.
But it's okay.
Yeah.
It's a good I've really incorporated.
You need that.
a high draw into my game, and I've never hit a high draw. And
I'm sorry.
a ball shape. I always hit a high cut, which the ball kind of goes like that. So now I've learned to hit a high draw on command, and just these little things where the ball goes a little longer.
Okay.
But then I just blatantly just played really shitty golf too. But mentally, I've never been in a better place with that game. It is another music, golf. Those are the
Zen.
2 things that just, I love them. I'm always happy when I'm there. And like all things in life, it's part of the process.
Yeah.
You know?
So what does the world need right now to make it a better place to live in?
People to listen to each other more. I think people to, I know America needs to, in my, just my opinion.
Right.
That someone could have certain beliefs, and another person can have other beliefs, and then you can still like each other.
Sure. You can actually converse.
And, you know, and converse and not understand it.
Or
but
maybe even be neighbors in some cases.
Exactly. But it's not your, like, this is the thing that I've been trying to do with everyone. Is like, it's not your place for them to have to agree with you. Like, this is what makes our country so beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, you know, just listen to them and allow them to be who they are. And, you know, I mean, if you really feel like you need to change their mind, then I don't know, you know, maybe you don't need to. You know, and I'm not,
Right.
I'm not like condoning or given, like, you know, ignorance will always be ignorance, and it should always be shamed. It should always be spotted. Racism should always be spotted. But like, if someone believes in more state rights, or someone believes more conservative things, then, like, you know, me, I'm fiscally conservative. I'm socially liberal, like as liberal as you can get.
Right.
I don't expect everyone to view the world like me, but at
Right.
the same point, like, it is what it is. So I think the world needs more of just
listening to one
listening
another.
to each other. And I know I need to be a better listener, and so I think we all do.
What's you win the lottery tomorrow? What's your first move?
Like, literal first move is
Yeah.
grabbing Liz and driving somewhere to a hotel that no one knows. Well, are we talking like I don't know, 500 million? Yeah.
Of more than you could spend before you're
More
dead.
than you spend. Yeah, I'm a very practical person, so my first thing is making sure that everything gets secured. So no, you know, it's one thing to win the money; it's the other thing to have it into safe accounts.
Yeah.
But from there, get everyone taken care of that needs to be taken care of in my life, and then travel.
Okay.
All right, travel.
If you could snap your fingers
Uh-huh.
and have all of the pieces you need to give a gift to somebody, whatever it is, who is the recipient and what is the gift?
My fiancé Liz, I'll always give her everything, you know, because she was the one that kind of didn't run away from me. So we've been together
How long has she had that title?
11 years now.
Engaged?
Engaged, 8 years, and then we moved here for her daughter and granddaughter, and you know, we joke someday we're going to get married. It's just you know, when you start having grandkids and you move for them, other things seem to get in the way.
It's just a formality.
It is a format. I believe it. I don't ever want to speak for
for
anyone else.
I feel you.
But I know it's a formality for me, and the only thing I can take care of is myself. And I know that you know, I've never been in a place, and there's something to be said about 11 years with anyone is let alone myself, is not easy. And you know, I think it's a lot. 49 years old, coming right up. I think it's the age, the maturity.
Man, you know what's crazy is that I don't know that it is supposed to be. And I think maybe we think that, you know, you go to school and get a job and married, kids, blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, oh, it's still just the grind, right?
Yeah. What I find the true hardest concept of long-term relationships that are sexual, and that's different than like non-sexual. I'm sorry, it is
absolutely
it is. You know,
without question.
I think that first you always have to, like, you know, listen. You have to take care of yourself, because that you know, I mean, whatever, we are who we are, and you know, by no means is looks and but I think you should keep yourself up to, like, for your partner. But I think also, this is where I was going to get back. That's a side tangent. It's easy to give up something that you really are not that passionate about, but any successful relationship is going to have you give up something that's not easy for you to give up. And it could be a habit, it could be material. Once you start doing those, then I think you are on a path of a good relationship, because it's easy. Oh, okay, I'm not going to golf 6 days a week. You know, I mean, those things are all easy, but to say that you're wrong, to say that you're sorry, to take a look at yourself and say, you know what, in the aspect of this relationship, I know I'm bringing baggage to the table, and I have to fix that. I have to change it. I have to give this up. That's a hard part, man. Yeah. And I think once you start to do that, then I think...
well, because it's not like a thing you go do. It's not like you write an essay and turn it in and it's done. No, now you have to live it.
Exactly. And I think also, like, you have to learn to appreciate, in, you know, that Robin Williams scene with Damon there in Good Will Hunting, when he was just like, you know, it's not about their what did he say? It was their quirks that he thinks that, like, you know, when she rolled over and farted in the middle of the night, or, you know, like, all these small little things that you could either say maybe they annoy me. Instead, I think you need to embrace those and really try to understand the essence of the person. And also, I think there's, like...
What Homer is that? Is that Carlton Fisk?
Yeah.
Is that the Homer?
Fucking, yeah.
And he's
Fisk,
like...
And then shortly after was a fucking Bucky Dent, but yeah.
And then he says, so would the place go nuts? And he's like, don't know. I wasn't there. And he's like, what? Great fucking story.
Yeah, great story. And
but I interrupted the quirks.
Yeah, and all that. And I think, like I said, it's just you know, for me, I know that I've found, like, rituals are very important for me. Like getting up in the morning or at night now, and I have my tea. But like the rituals of interacting with each other during the during the morning and those things. And again, just like, you know, I don't know. That's where
that's like the engine's oil.
It is.
You know, you can't eventually something's going to break or overheat or whatever if you don't have that in there.
Or take a look at it. This is how I've kind of looked at it. Like I probably about 5 years ago stopped giving up the conception of happiness, because really, if you think about it, happiness is an elevated feeling, which means that there has to be some kind of cup down. And with anything that kind of like comes off the center axis, if it's here, that means that it has to be over here also. That's the way that the universe works, right? So I mean, anytime that you achieve happiness, there's probably got to be a correlating emotion that is the opposite of that, which is sadness, anger, you know, negative things. And I do find that, like, the middle content region is a very, very sound, stable region to be in. And to be content in a relationship is so healthy, I believe. And you know, the shiny red ball thing will never work in a relationship.
I mean, happy is a thing that you dip in and out of.
No, it's there, and I want to be happy. I want to laugh, but at the same time,
of course,
you're right. But it is a pool that you should swim carefully, maybe.
Yeah, just to expect, just to be all of your waking hours to be happy across the board. It
almost sounds like a version of hell, really. I mean, if you think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, really, at the end of the day, I mean, what is hell? It's a place that you don't even know that you're there. And I think, really, again, you know, this
what's the name of that song? Terrible thing about hell.
Is that
that when you're there, you can't even tell. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Boom,
It's a great, and it's always like
Ryan and Robert is if you're just staring at your walls.
I love that song.
Maybe it is. No. Ficus
Yeah,
is.
it's one of those weird songs. It came around the Sick Disc, I feel like.
That's Story of the Ghost.
Oh, is it Story of the Ghost?
Yeah. Sick Disc is like
all the instrumental, but I always for
that's
some
where
reason,
we get
fucking My Left Foot or Two Left Feet or
no. They play it live often.
Yeah, they
it's,
do. Exactly what you're talking about.
But anyway,
yeah, man. Yeah, we could talk. I know you and I could talk Phish forever. But yeah, and you know the other thing
what's
too,
the use?
What's the use? That is it. That's a great album, actually. That was cool. That was when they just like they were having record on all the time, I guess, right in the studio, and then they were like, "Fuck, this is good shit."
Is it Story of the Ghost leftovers?
Oh, that's exactly right. That's
yeah.
what it is.
So you were right. I mean, that's exactly.
Boy,
Terrible thing about hell is that when you're there, you can't even tell.
Right.
You move through the world. The lyrics, the package of lyrics that is that song, is like holy shit.
Yeah.
Like you could say, you know. You'd take that, you'd look at that as a slide in the microscope, and then take it out and be like,
"Whoa,
you got to see this, man!"
Exactly. You know, there's a lot of Phish songs that people, and you know, I know Tom Marshall and Trey can get goofy at times, and sometimes I think it's for phonetic value, right? Like, you know, the word is there just for the sound more than it is. But then there's like even that song "Sleep," man, like, or like I remember for the first time, like. When you're there, I sleep lengthwise, and when you're gone, I was like, wow, that does happen, man. You know, like just shit like that, which I always think is cool.
Well,
Phish.
I know we gotta get you out of here, Rob Davis, but thank you so very much.
Thank you, man.
I know you got very little time outside of the building, and to have you give some to me feels like a gift. So
well, this is a gift for me also because I think a lot of thoughts and just stories stay bottled up sometimes. So I mean, just to be able to talk to someone who loves music
and you also gave me the opportunity to talk about one of my favorite records of all time. So there is that. Thanks, man.
Thank you. That was fun, dude.